So I was listening to another podcast, or not listening to, but I came across it on TikTok, and the dude
You're a
is,
fucking TikTok degenerate. Fucking
but no, this dude was like, would you rather fuck with a girl who occasionally dabbles in crystal meth, or date a girl who's really into crystals?
people always tell you people always tell you don't stick your dick in crazy, but I personally operate by if you've ever seen that image template of that like comic book guy and he's sitting there and he's like, "Wow, I should not stick my penis in there." However,
However,
that's basically how so like
I take the girl that's really into crystals because I just want to have to deal with crystal meth.
I'm the kind of person who I'm like I do fuck with the people that I fuck around with having interests because I'd rather be friends and then have benefits with you than just be fucking you and nothing else. But like,
I don't know,
I
the girl
don't
that
think I
dabbles.
could sit there and just have a conversation every time I talk to you about crystals and smash you on the side, as opposed to just being a regular person and then you occasionally dabble in crystal meth.
Well, I feel
Because
like
like I don't have to be there for the crystal meth. I just have to know that you do it, and that's just it.
I don't
As
know. I'd
opposed
rather
to
take the girl that's really into crystals because I just like I don't know. I just would rather not have to deal with someone who's on crystal meth.
see, because there's like no stipulations.
Because
He didn't say
no,
she
because
had to be on crystal meth
no,
while you're
no, that's
fucking
not
with
the
her.
stipulation. But there's also you also have to. The way I'm thinking of it is there's no other guidelines except for just like, oh hey, she dabbles in crystal meth. So there's a total possibility that she could just be like, you know what, like, fuck it, I'm gonna just really do crystal meth, and then just goes in downward spiral, and you're like, oh, I'm out of a bitch.
Damn. Yeah, true.
Like,
Bro said it's resource management. What if she fucks around too
that's what I'm
hard one
saying.
time and it's over?
That's what I'm saying. You have to make sure you got to keep track of your bitches.
But
I know where all my bitches
what
are
if it
at.
goes the other way around though? Like, okay, so the bitch that's really into crystals, what if one time she sees one that she really likes, like a really expensive one, she just dumps all her cash on it, and then she's just completely fucking broke?
Okay, I'm about
Or
ready to buy a
worse,
$214
worse,
cyberpunk jacket.
worse,
I
she
don't
dumps
think.
all of your cash on it.
Who says I'm giving her any of my fucking money?
You didn't say there were any guidelines, bro.
That's what I'm saying. Like those are just like the baselines. Like, that never said I had to give her my fucking money. I'm just fucking with the bitch. That doesn't mean I'm.
That works for the crystal meth chick too. You could pull it. You could do it 50 style and just make sure she doesn't have any fucking money. Can't exactly go get crystal meth if you're completely fucking broke, can you?
No, she's gonna be broke because she spends all her money on crystal meth.
True.
That's what I'm saying. A girl with that's hella into crystals, when she buys enough crystals, she's gonna have, like, I would assume, I've never like the people who I've met who are like hella into crystals, they don't be like, yo, I'm gonna just keep going and going and going and just keep getting, like, once they get like a
It
like
depends on
the
the
ones they,
person. My mom's
yeah,
kind of into it, and she just kind of picks up the ones that are interesting whenever she sees them.
that's what I'm saying. But like,
Like in shops and shit. It's not that often, but like when she sees them, she gets a lot of them.
but I
Like
feel like,
at once. It's a big ass fucking. Like we went on vacation to
see, but you also have to
Denver.
think about, like, what is the total that she actually owns, because like I feel like
Too
once,
fucking many. She bought like 10, and then each of us kids got one, and
how big were they?
uh, anywhere from like this
Oh,
to
see,
like this.
that's not that bad.
Oh,
Because
it's
even
not
I
that
have
bad.
some in my room.
I'm sure she found some
That's also
bigger
why I
ones
think
that
I'm
do
okay
more.
with it, because I have crystals in my room.
Yeah, because you'd have
but I don't.
common ground.
But I don't also like. I'm not into them the way that like other people are into crystals. Like, I just, ooh, shiny pretty rocks. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this looks really cool when the light hits it in my room, and it makes all these cool little colors and shit. I'm just pretty rock, shiny object. Like,
You're like
but
a fucking bird. You're just like,
yeah.
oh, hey, that's a shiny object. I fuck with
But
that.
like, there's some bitches that are like, this will help you. How?
That's how my fucking mom is. I don't have like, ooh,
Like, I
shiny,
understand
pretty rock
there is some
crystal.
science to crystals,
I just have
as in
colored
like
ones.
there is some science to crystals, but it's mostly quartz. And the only real science is that quartz are a like their car- their carbon structure is perfect for different like sound waves and frequencies. And there are quartz radios, like when like radios were first coming out and stuff like that. They made a quartz radio where if you put a quartz inside a radio and had their frequency go through it, the the structure of quartz would amplify the frequency and put it out. Like, yes, there's baseline science on that and stuff like that. Our bodies give off a certain hertz of a frequency, but it's very, very little. Like our heartbeat is like whatever amount of frequency, and our brain works on like a certain like the signals our brain gives off. But it's very fucking little. And there's no science to say that this little quartz crystal is gonna make my mood better.
That's why we don't actually have any like thought activated tech yet, because it's so hard to harness a brainwave
This was
when
a
it's like when it's such a small frequency that's so
It's
hard to detect,
2022 and the only thing that we
especially at
have
range.
is fucking Neuralink, and that's barely in the process of
Barely.
yeah. But we also have a shit ton of abundance of technology, and we could totally probably research it a lot more if people weren't so fucking greedy and was like, oh, like
I
I'm
think
in
the
it for the
biggest
money. Like
problems in the world right now that are preventing like
a lot of like
human
scientific
advancement
breakthroughs.
is
Yeah.
like greed, and then the consequences of that greed have led down to like trickle down problems. So like there's fucking greedy moguls who are just fucking shit up to make money.
Mm-hmm.
And then the consequences of those actions, like fucking global warming, all this shit,
Oh yeah.
like conflicts in certain areas
That's
where
what I'm
there's
saying.
a
Like we
bunch
have
of
an
shit that would
abundance of
be good
technology.
for like technological development. So scientists are like focusing on environmental issues, which I mean they should because they exist. I'm not saying stop focusing on that, but I'm saying like because those problems have been caused and they now exist, science has like extremely slowed down development in a bunch of other fields because now we're focused
Oh
on
yeah.
like how do we stop the planet from killing us, or how do we stop killing the planet.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it's like fucking like I know there's people out there in certain like people in the certain science fields and engineering fields that are like, oh, I would love to develop this, and it's like, but I need money because this
Yeah,
costs
it's like
money. But
funding
it's like,
as well.
yeah, but it's like if you come together as like a collective society and was like, hey, we need to advance this. We have an abundance of technology. Let's have money not be a question and just donate what we need. Like
we
it's
need
it's
we
just
need a
like
country
equipment and
to
stuff like
just
that.
do that, but
Like
it's because of how
like when it
human
comes to equipment,
civilization has developed that no world leader can like reasonably just go, hey, I'm just going to cut all the bullshit. You have a blank check. Just go. Because there's so many other problems they need to deal with in the modern age. Like,
yeah.
I guarantee,
Or just
if
take
you were
money out of the
president,
question.
if you were president right now, and you were like, hey, you gathered up like a bunch of fucking scientists, like the US's top, maybe even the world's top, if you had that kind of authority,
Mm-hmm.
and you were like, I'm just going to cut you a blank check, spend whatever you need to. Money is not a question. I don't care about the cash.
All we care about is
Develop,
results in scientific
yes,
like,
develop in
advancement.
this direction. I want advancement. I want to see what you
We
can
want
do
like
when we put your heads together and take money out of the equation.
like we need clean energy for the United States, right? We need to redo our whole power grid because our power grid is still the same as it fucking was when it first came out.
See,
Essentially,
but
I
then
mean,
like
like
the
it's
U.S.
not
president,
exact.
right?
Yeah,
You can't just do that because then you have to worry about like, oh, what are the fuckers in Congress gonna say? What's your opponent in the next like election gonna do? Because you're a fucking opponent.
that's what
I
I'm saying. We
guarantee
have
you,
all
he's gonna
these,
be like,
and
hey,
that's also another
this
thing.
fucking guy
Borders,
just
like the whole border
spent.
situation and stuff like that, and like like I still don't understand why we as a world still have borders on our countries and not just open everything up. Because when you have open countries and open borders, you have so many more ideas flowing, economy flowing, you have different trade going, you have inventions coming in and out of different countries, You have more tourism.
That's why the
Plus, then you're
Renaissance
still
was so
making
big,
money.
because the world was like so much smaller back then, and things weren't necessarily as complicated. So the borders were open, as in you couldn't really enforce like, hey, we can just stop 90% of people from coming in. So you had fucking ideas and inventions
Yeah,
and
because like
books and literature and
the border between the
just
United States and Mexico used to be
thoughts
open. It used to just be you can just come
just
in and out.
flowing through. Well, there was like a fence and like checkpoints in modern times, but like
Yeah, but
it
we
has
didn't.
been
It wasn't as strict
significantly upgraded in the past like decade.
because I don't remember which I want to say a president's name that I think it was, but I feel like I'm getting it
Like
wrong.
like it would
because
be
history-
funny to say it was a Trump thing, but like it really wasn't. This was
No,
before Trump, like in the past like
wasn't it?
decade or maybe two,
It
because
was
Obama was
before.
also involved. It was like
It was before Watergate when our
yeah,
borders
like
shut
the
down
borders
and it became
have
super
just
strict.
slowly since around
Yeah,
that time just gotten more and more
because it used to
like
be like
beefed up.
people from Mexico and the
You could
United
just
States would
walk
just
in. You
travel
could just
in and out,
cross.
and you would like,
That
oh,
that's
we're
why
gonna come
like
in for work,
wetback is a
and go
slur,
back.
because you used to be able to just walk over that river. Like you just used to be able to just wade through there, and if you didn't die, boom, you're in America. No more complications
Yeah,
until you get to civilization.
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand why we still have borders today,
I think
and I feel like that would help scientific advancements a lot too.
the problem is, and I think this is just my opinion on
Like, there should be no reason that I have to prove myself like viable to a country in order to go visit it or some shit. Like, like
yeah,
I
like
get
I'd
having
love to
like you
visit
can
the
still keep a
UK, but like have you
passport,
ever heard all of
but
the
like,
shit you need to do to actually like exist in the UK for
mhm.
more than like a couple
Yeah,
weeks at
just
a
to go
time?
live in another country
You
for
need
like a
to
year, you have
either
to do so much shit.
in the fucking UK, it's wild. You need to either have like married a UK citizen
Mhm.
and then be with them for a certain number of years. And there's a couple of other ones. Like work isn't an option. It's like the normal work visa where it's like, oh yeah, you could be over here for like a year, but only if you're working, like contributing
Yeah, I
directly to
don't.
the economy with no benefit to yourself. And then the other one is like going back through your family history.
Yeah, but who really wants to go live in the UK?
I mean, it's
I'd rather go live in
marginally
any other country
better.
than the UK.
It's marginally better than here, in my opinion, because at least my fucking healthcare, I don't get,
Yeah,
my entire organs charged out of my body when I go to the fucking hospital.
yeah, that's true.
Like I have my concerns with living in like every other major country except for maybe Australia.
Yeah.
I think I'd want to live in Australia, but I don't fuck with spiders. I think the first time I
Oh
saw a
yeah.
giant spider in the corner of my house, I might just burn the
I'm
whole
just
fucking.
fucking done. I'm
I
going
might
back. I
I
can't do
might
it.
just burn the whole crib down, bro. I'm not gonna lie.
But no, what I was saying earlier, going back to the whole like clean energy thing like that, like if we're to, there's no reason that we should have like I don't think there's any reason other than just profit. We have to pay for electricity. You can just
Yeah,
make
like it.
electricity.
Well,
It's
I mean,
you can
yes,
literally
yeah,
just make
yeah.
it.
You can
How do
just
you think a
create
fucking car does
energy.
it?
Yeah.
It's an alternator, which is
Well, I would say
magnet and
less
coils.
energy and more like electricity specifically, and
Well,
like
yeah.
force. So
But that's what I'm saying. Like, if we
according
came
to
together and
scientific
found
theory,
a
you
clean
cannot
way to do
create
energy, which there
energy,
is,
but
there are
like yeah,
plenty of power plants that are way better options for clean energy, especially nuclear fusion. Which, when people think about it, they think of like Chernobyl when you think nuclear and stuff like that. But there's different elements that are denser and safer to use and produce more energy for longer than what
it's
we
weird
use.
because like people
All of this stuff
when
is
they
possible,
talk
but then
about
people are like, "Oh, how can
energy,
we profit off of it?"
when they talk about energy, it's always like okay, so like coal obviously very bad
Yeah.
for like our atmosphere and all that shit. But then when you get to nuclear energy, there's this weird split of like what you said of like, oh yeah, nuclear energy is pretty good because it makes energy for longer, and I mean it's a little bit cleaner, but it's a lot more dangerous to handle.
Depending on
And
what elements you
there's
use,
just this
because
long
there
list of
are other
accidents.
elements that are way like
But
they.
there's the split because there's some people that are like, oh well, it's not like super duper clean, and it's so easy to just fuck it up and like
Japan
devastate
has.
an area.
I remember
But
2019 or
then
2020. I read that like Japan has successfully created nuclear fission and made a power plant with the center being a star. They
that
essentially
kind of sounds
created
like cap. But then again, if anyone would be able to do some whack ass bullshit like that, it would probably be the Japanese.
but
So
like I'm saying, like this, like nuclear fission is a thing, and that's one of the best ways to produce
I think
energy.
honestly, I believe that, and I think
Harnessing
it
the
maybe
power
just
of
isn't
like
that
even just
widespread yet. Because you know, like in science fiction, it's like oh, a nuclear fission, and they'll just have like a fucking minus 2x scale star, so it's just like half a star in scale, but it's still there. I think modern fission, when the technology really
I think it's
spreads
like
around,
1/4
it's
of the
got to
size
be
of a
like
star. It's
really fucking small.
but it
But even a
produces.
star like this big would produce enough energy to power like a fucking country for
Yeah,
a long time.
that's what I'm saying. Like if money wasn't like just like take money out of the equation, we could make so many advancements in technology. And there's also another thing where it's like, how are we not just handing out phones to people when we have an abundance amount of phones? Like even the cheap ones, like like the fucking A22 series or some shit. Like them,
Yeah, I
or
fucking
like when it comes to like go look at our fucking dumps, our fucking trash dumps and shit like that. There's an abundance amount of metals, like old technology, old cell phones and shit
I
like that,
find it
which can
just
be
really hard
recycled.
to believe that in like fucking landfills, which still
Landfill, that's
exist.
the
It's
word I was
it's
looking for.
really like easy to forget that they still exist. I find it hard to believe that there is any lack of recyclable or reusable material anywhere in a landfill. Like
That's what I'm saying.
landfills, despite regulations, are always just full of fucking like metal and little
There's
trinkets
also a
and
thing
shit, but they're also
like
full of like paper and cardboard and trash. And
with
like, sure, you'd
Samsung.
have to
Do you know what
separate out
Samsung does
trash.
for all their shit now?
No,
With Samsung, you don't ever have to throw away your phone. If you throw like just throwing away your phone, instead Samsung has said we'll take your old devices for free, take them apart, take out all the materials that we can use. The plastic will find a way to they find a way to recycle it, use it to make the newer phones,
yeah,
and then
you can
take the
just
old
melt
metals.
down plastic and use
Yeah,
it again
and then
at
they
a
take
certain
the old
level.
metals. Like I was when I was in New York and I went to the Samsung I think it's like 484 or something like that. It's their building that's down there. I don't remember the actual, but I was up inside there and I was talking with Mark Newton, who is one of the guys who is in charge. Don't remember his actual title. I'm sorry, Mark. Um, but he is basically in charge of like the reusable like recycling and stuff like that. Like the dude's basically in charge of that shit. Like he's the top guy. He's like the number one corpo. Um, like I say that in an endearing way for him because the dude's cool as fuck. One, he knows a lot of shit, and the way he explains everything is that essentially what Samsung is doing is that they are trying to stop having to make like get as many raw resources as possible and start reusing the old shit that we have that we can then just take, reuse, and make into the new shit. It's just like we have we have an abundance of fucking technology. How is it like that we're still paying for all this technology in the world? I feel like it's not like when it comes to like my idea of I'm not one for socialism because that can go wrong in so many ways. Like look at
It
fucking
has gone
Russia.
wrong in
Yeah.
so many ways. Look at fucking Venezuela.
Yeah. But like there's a point to where like hunger in the world, we produce so much food that it's not to the point of like, oh, it's socialism to where it's like everyone should get this amount of food. Like we're gonna provide like no, it's like I get like if we didn't produce this much food, okay, yeah, pay for your food, your grocery shopping, all that stuff like that. But we produce so much excess of food that gets thrown away every day in the United States that all of it could just be like here.
You could put that shit on pallets and just set it like out front, and like people would just come up and grab the shit. I know
Yeah.
for a fact there are people in town who probably need
And
a good 90% of the shit
there's
out.
also like a thing like communal like gardens, like city gardens, used to be a thing where like as long as you contributed to your society, to your little whatever, your town, you just went up and got the groceries you needed. And you didn't have to worry about like the one of the biggest things that I hear is like, oh well, what about people who are going to take more than what they need? Like it's like, okay, but society will deal with that. Like, yeah, we'll
Society
fucking
will deal with
ostracize
that,
them or
but I
shit like
also
that. Like
feel like if you're running like okay, I know this isn't
when there's an
usually how it.
abundance, there is so much less that people are gonna think of. Oh, I need to take more. When there's so much to be like just given out, like no one. I feel like the human like just experience itself is like I'm not gonna like it just doesn't
I
happen.
also feel like I know this isn't how it usually shook out with city gardens, but it's like okay, so if this is a garden and theoretically just for the sake of the argument, pretty much everyone in the city is contributing, right?
Hmm.
At that level,
Especially when
at
you
that scale
like food
of
scraps.
people, there is so much shit. Not only will people not feel the need for the most part to like overtake,
Yeah.
because there's just so much law. I tapped the fucking mic with my lips. Um, but at that scale, there's going to be so much that, like, even if somebody decides to be like, I'm going to take a little bit more this time around,
It's not gonna affect it that
the
much.
numbers game will just even it out. And they're like, it's going to be negligible, the
Yeah.
effect on the whole garden. If one guy's like, man, I need like a few extra tomatoes from like Jill's patch today or something, like,
Yeah.
it's not going to fucking matter.
Where it's like, oh hey, I'm gonna take extra, but I'm going to be making extra. So if anyone would like some, come take.
Going back, you said some shit about borders, and I mean, I guess this is more like my opinion on like the human condition, but I feel like at this point, with the way society has advanced, even if right now we wanted to get rid of borders, like if
It would go
people
to
had
shit.
that kind of authority,
I feel like it would
society is
just go to
developed in
shit.
a way that has made people like if you get rid of the borders, if there's just this slow breakdown of society because modern human society is built up around borders, around nations, around
And
these like
also this like
concepts of unity,
human like
and then
this like
you remove those just imaginary lines on the map,
yeah.
it all goes to shit. Even though everything is in place, like if you leave the systems in place and everything,
Yeah.
modern society has built itself up so much around borders and nations that when you get rid of one of those two,
Or like the value we
it's
put on like
suddenly
like money itself, like that fucking blows my mind on the
money's
fact
just
of how
paper.
we like
And it
put
has its
like in
advantages
such an
and
importance
disadvantages, and
to
it's really weird because like bartering,
yeah
bartering in the
bartering is
modern day,
such a better way to do an economy for bartering
like
than it
if
is
you tried to set
fucking
up bartering in a city, in my opinion, it would go to shit because not
yeah.
everyone's gonna have the same shit always, and bartering was always based off of like, okay, this is of equal value to this, which is
Yeah.
why I'm just going to trade it to you directly, one thing for another.
Or like
Or you could trade masses of things for one big thing, and it's still not really going to work out. So, like, in that case, money has its advantages, but also money has been kind of like built up into the system where it just becomes harder and harder on you and on your living situation to get more and more of it.
the
And so
majority like
it turns
the
so many
big
people's lives
population.
into this chase of I need to have more money just always, and you never stop, and it fucks you up because you're doing all this shit and fucking up your body because your body's not really built to be working like this just ever. So you're out doing all this shit all the time for cash, and I think you kind of just lose sight of like
Plus, if we
what
go
it's like to live instead of just
if we go to like
eternally
an
chasing
open
cash.
society about it, like how we were saying, like with technology advances, you could easily have it for the United States. We send it like I said, abundance of technology. We can basically get rid of like Congress and all that shit like that. Make every like it's of the people for the people. Why don't the government like .gov sets up like their own servers to manage everything, put security to where it can't be hacked, make it to where it's an app like a government app that anyone in the world can download. You prove your ID, you get your voter's registration card, you take a picture, you send it in, they verify it, and then when there needs to be a vote on something, like, oh hey, we want to update the infrastructure of this state, or of blah blah this and that, or the country, or we want to find a cleaner way for energy, like, vote yes or no. Everyone in the United States who has the system in play and has their voter registration card updated in can vote yes or no directly from their phone in real time, then send it. If the majority of the population says yes, then take money out of the equation and just fucking do it, because obviously the United population wants it done.
The history of that in the U.S. is really interesting
But
to me because
that,
like
like, how is
it
that
was
not,
either
like, how do we not do that?
it was either like the Declaration of Independence or the Constitution that was like it's it's like by the people for the people, right?
Yeah.
As soon as the country was actually set up, that kind of started going out the window, which is why really early on in American history you had this beef between the people
Yeah.
and then the federal government, because the federal government was like, okay, we're doing all this shit for you, and the people were like, no, this is encroaching on my rights,
Yeah.
and it's like by the people for the people. And I feel
It's
like
also like when
over
it comes to
time,
presidential election, like the population, the populace voting, like you can have majority of the United States vote this way. Like with Trump and what's it called, or the Trump and Biden election, Trump won the popular vote of, like, he got more votes through
like,
people
was this the
themselves
first time or the second
the
time?
second time. Because he won the pop. Because, like, there's a whole bunch of stipulation, but I'm saying this as a, like, I'm now taking this scenario in a hypothetical. Trump and Biden. If Trump wins the popular vote, like, out of United States citizens, more citizens vote for Trump, right? But then you know how you have, like, you have your, I'm not ultimately knowledgeable in, like, the whole how our government essentially works. Like, I know majority of it, but, like, when it comes to, like, voting and stuff like that. But I know that there's, like, if the people that represent you vote another way, even though the majority of the United States population wants this guy as president, if their votes go, no, we want this guy, they completely go, fuck you, United States citizens. We don't care if the majority of you outweigh all of this. We're
I've
voting
always
this
found
way.
that because
So now
it's
this
like an
guy wins.
important. It's weird how opinion of that always shifts because it's like when it's weird how opinion on that always shifts because it's when the candidate that's being voted against just generally isn't popular. Everyone's like, oh yeah, I love the electoral college. I'm glad they're fighting with us.
Mm-hmm.
But then when the American people want something else, and then their elected state officials vote another way, the Electoral College usually supports the state
That's
politicians,
what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't, like, the
and
whole
nobody really
the
seems to
whole
talk
opinion
about
of
it. But like,
the U.S. population of the people gets thrown out. And it's just like, how is it the majority of the United States and the majority of the population wants this guy, but then the electoral college, your state representative says, no, I want to vote this way, and then puts in that, and they're like, well, the majority of the population wants this guy. They all voted yes. Like, 79% of the population wants this. The rest of the population voted no. Well, the majority rules outweighs it, so 79% of the population wins, right? But then you go to the electoral vote, and it's like, well, it's actually 79% of the electoral vote of your representatives want this, and not this guy. So it's like, well, fuck the major population. We're gonna vote this way, and now this guy's in office.
yeah, it's like fucking because
I hope my thoughts are coming out right.
politicians, especially state politicians, when that's such a generally low rank on like the national scale
Mm-hmm.
of things, to be honest, or not low rank, I guess, because you are technically like right below Congress and the Senate, but it's just this rank, much like pretty much every other government rank, where people when they vote, they don't vote for the people that they represent. They vote for whoever they think is going to keep them in office or
Hmm.
advance them to the next level of office.
It's just so
And
fucked.
they never get cycled out because like there's a reason everybody in like Congress and the Senate is like fucking 60 to like 80, 90. It's because they've played that political game for so long. It's to them it's not about the people necessarily unless the
Yeah.
screaming is particularly loud in their ear. It's like they're always just okay, what's going to advance my agenda or what's going to keep me in this seat for another like 2 to 4
Yeah. What's
years.
gonna keep getting raking in that money for me?
I don't even know if it's necessarily about personal profit on their end unless it's like their personal agendas where they're being sponsored. I think the majority
Well, I
of
feel
it,
like their
if I
personal
had to
agenda is
guess,
also affected by their profit.
well, yes, but I feel like if I
Because
had to guess, a
like, oh,
majority
I'm
of
making
that,
millions of dollars by this way, and I want this to happen. And if this happens, I make even more money. Like, then yes, their profit is influencing what they're doing. Like, and it's like no,
I
like that
feel
shouldn't
like
be
the
a factor.
majority of the schism comes from like, sure, they want to keep making profit, but the way they do that best is what can keep, like if you're on Congress, right, they get
Hmm.
cycled out, what, every like 2 to 4 years,
Something like
or
that.
they should be,
Hmm.
unless they get voted back in.
However it works. Yeah.
They're like, okay, what's gonna keep me in this seat for another 4 years? And that's like the biggest concern in the tower of
So
priorities.
fucked.
It's like, what's gonna keep me in this seat for another 4 years? Then what can I do to advance my own interests? Then what can I do to advance the interests of my party or people that I'm aligned with? And then like 20 empty layers down is like, what can I do for the American people? You always, or well, maybe you don't, but I'm a fucking nerd who likes reading books sometimes. So I'm like, you always read like Tom Clancy books where it's like, oh yeah, there's this fresh new politician. And he's trying to like change up the game, trying to actually get shit done on Capitol Hill, and it never works out because it's just everyone there is playing this fucking weird like Machiavellian game in the fucking like chords of power, and there's nothing anyone can do
Or
about it.
like going back to like voting of the people, like when that whole abortion thing was like really big and like and now it's like most states are like made it illegal for abortions and shit like that. I feel like it should have just been like the whole idea of like, hey, there's like go back to the whole app idea and just be like everyone who's registered to vote, should we make abortion legal? If the majority of the population says no, then no, it's not illegal.
Yeah, I was
There
gonna
you
say
go.
like I feel like
It's
a
done within a
majority of
day.
people in the public in like the court of public opinion were like, this is a dumbass idea, and actually surprisingly a lot of politicians, except not the ones here because it's
Yeah.
fucking Kansas and we're like the most Republican state ever Republican that isn't Texas. Um, a lot of politicians were like, yeah, no, we don't support this, and so it made it feel, especially in terms of like public opinion, like
That it didn't
the
matter.
Supreme Court kind of just like Michael Jordan fucking jumped over everyone and
Yeah.
just like dunked this in there last minute, and there was just nothing anyone can do about it because the
That's,
courts had just been stacked since like Trump's days, and there hasn't been a new one.
that's
How
what I'm
one of
saying.
them
Like,
like died in office, so like they were all of the same opinion, and it kind of felt like they were just waiting to drop this one till just now, and everybody was like, "Oh yeah, Democrats are cycling back in."
yeah. I'm so tired.
They were like, "Yeah, man, Democrats been real quiet since this one dropped."
Fuck them. Biden, go fuck yourself. You old,
I just feel
decrepit
like
man.
in my opinion, bro, I don't think either of them were really good candidates.
No, neither one was a good
Like when Trump
candidate.
was in office, I can't name a single good thing he ever did in
He
office.
gave me a raise when I was in the army.
Yeah, like he
I
gave you
mean,
a
that
raise,
was
and
cool.
your average Republican guy is like, "Oh yeah, he really boosted the economy." But I feel like your average American citizen, maybe this is just like a personal
It's like I don't
experiences
see
thing.
shit
I didn't
change.
feel that. I didn't get a bump in anything. In fact, I think all of my expenses kind of got a little bit worse. Like anytime anyone lists off a president and they're like, oh yeah, they fixed the economy, like they made the economy better. It's always like, if anything, my bills and shit got like a couple
More,
dollars or
yeah.
like 10 or 20 or $100 worse, even though the economy is better now.
Fuck that shit. All right, June, we gotta go back to work.
Yeah.
See you later, you fucking